So, guys, it's David here, and it's currently day 376. I hope you guys had an amazing Sunday, and like always, are doing better than yesterday. Now, when I woke up in this beautiful room today, right, I was reading my book, Power versus Force, and as I was reading this book, I had some real difficulty just keeping focus and read the word line by line. And I was constantly distracted by my thought of my body's urges. My body was telling me to feel something different because it was urging for a sense of gratification, for a sense of instant gratification. And from what I know, to pleasure my body is that to perhaps buy drugs and do drugs and relapse and just have a fun time, right? That is exactly the thought I was having on my mind today as I was reading the book. So I couldn't read. And also, I was fighting off this urge to make again another treacherous decision, which I will horribly regret afterwards. Now, naturally, when I come to something like this, I start to view this situation in a positive light. I try to think positive, right? I try to think like, perhaps, look, David, you're having this thought. You're having this perhaps temptation or distracted thought which you don't want to think about because at the moment you're trying to read and you don't want to think about this nonsense. And naturally, I will think positively and say to myself, well, David, look, you done great today at the gym, or David, look, you are here reading, you are here doing something, therefore you shouldn't be so hard on yourself, right? You shouldn't be making yourself more stressful. Sometimes you just have to let go of some things. But what I realize is when I say these things to myself, yes, I do feel a sense of relief. I do feel a sense of relief, and I do feel like there is something right deep down inside of me that has been letting go. I feel this weight lifted off my shoulders. But sometimes what I also realize, and perhaps the most significant thing, is every time I positive think to myself, I am clouding myself from the reality. I am clouding myself from the truth. And sometimes because I comfort myself from perhaps a failure, from a mistake I make, I tend to repeat those same mistakes because I had allowed myself to repeat those mistakes simply because I said it was okay to make such mistakes. Now, I am not saying that by positive thinking or perhaps being positive that you are dooming yourself to repeat the same mistakes. But for me, what I had realized is when I think positive in such a destructive and perhaps crucial moment of my judgment, something like relapsing on drugs or perhaps doing something totally stupid without thinking, in such moments when I start to view things as something not of the reality, but rather something to try and sugarcoat the fact that this thing is actually wrong, I tend to make or remake the mistake more likely than if I had just been totally honest with myself. And quite honestly, guys, today I didn't stop this thought by mere trying to think positive. Right? I stopped this thought because for once I had saw things for what it is. Right? That if I do end up doing this, I am not going to get away with it. I am not going to just ruin my life for another week or so and then pay the consequence of feeling like total shit and most importantly just wasting my time. I have to pay for the consequence. And realizing the fact that I am almost 20 and realizing the fact that I am almost 20 and still have goddamn trouble controlling my own body, letting my body control my mind. It is a very disturbing thing. It is very scary and horrifying to think about something like that. To to be a young adult and still have no control over his own self, that is devastating to think about. And that thought of facing my truth, facing what is actually happening in the present moment, made me realize. And I'm not saying that I saw something. I'm not saying that I saw what it is like to be 20 or 30 and still perhaps live with your parents, or perhaps be 30 or 40 and still have this ambition but have not yet improved himself one bit. I am not saying I saw something that prevented me from acting, but something more strong hit me, something clicked, because I felt what it was like to be that person in that situation, to be someone who's 40 and 30 and still has trouble controlling his own body's urges, still has trouble saying no to instant gratification. I felt what it is like, the shame, right, the disgust, to be someone that's 30 and have not yet improved nor changed one bit in the direction he or she said they were going to do or they were going to become. I felt what it was like to be that person. And that feeling, that emotion communicated to me so strongly and so directly that my thought, that my mere desire of thinking about relapsing and thinking about doing all this dumb shit while I was relapsing just diminished, right? It disappeared. It just vanished out of my mind. It is as if this feeling, like as if my stomach was turning internally. I just couldn't bear another thought of what it is like to do it, right? To waste my life once again. Because for once, I was not going to tolerate the fact that I will be okay if I choose to relapse or not. Heck, we all know we are going to be fine if we make a dumb decision afterwards, right? We don't need to self-comfort ourselves to understand that when you make a mistake, right, life will still go on. Just because you make a mistake, it does not mean it's the end of the world. I do believe we all know that. But what is the problem for me is when I make those such mistakes, is when I comfort myself, is when I try to be positive. Because every single time I try to be positive to myself, I end up making the same mistake, simply because when I made those mistakes, I have shown compassionate, or I had tolerated the fact that I will be fine afterwards. So therefore I have like ingrained this pattern that if I choose to make the mistake or not, at the end of the day, I will be fine. Yes, I may have a week where I feel very low and very depressed and unmotivated, but guess what? After a few more days, David, you'll be fine. And this is the problem of where my positive thinking and being positive lies. I'm not saying that letting go of things and being positive in a moment of adversity is a bad thing, because certainly it has made me feel great. But the problem is when you start to be positive, to become deluded to the fact that making such mistakes won't hurt you. That is when the problem happens. It is when you start to lower your standards and tolerate less from life and lower your expectations of your potential. That is where the problem lies. And this was the problem for me. And I would have made the same mistake again today if I didn't see my present reality as it is the fact that if I choose to make this mistake, then I am not only going to feel shit for a week, but I am going to tolerate it less next time. So maybe I'll have lower courage, I'll have lower confidence, and most importantly, I'll have less belief in my own capabilities. So, with that being said, guys, what I had understood today is that there are times where we should be positive. There are times where we should let go of things. But what's most important is to face reality as what it is, to understand the hard truth, to understand that every single action we choose to make has some consequence. Nothing is not going to go unpaid, and most importantly, in the moments where we are going to choose to comfort ourselves, never use that comfort for granted and to use that to lower your expectations of life. Because never tolerate less, guys. Never tolerate less from life. Always seek for more. But with that being said, I hope you guys had learned something from this. But if not, like always, I'll be here for you guys tomorrow. But until then, good night.